we decided to create a tool based upon the PMBOK standard, because there was other stuff into the market, but none of them were really in line with PMBOK. So we took that decision to make it like as much as we can by the book, even though we know that PMBOK is not just like a methodology, but more a framework, okay? We as well started to think about building something that would be adapted to as much people as possible, knowing that there's different maturity, customers are different, etc. So starting by an open management framework, okay? Something that is intuitive, simple to administer, so it means like the tool doesn't require too much time to administrate, and it's as intuitive, as simple as possible, so people that are not so well or so much familiar with PMBOK and how project management works, they can anyway get very quickly into the tool and don't find it too difficult. All right, make the tool as configurable as possible, but without complex workflows. All right, that's when we talked about open management framework. I mean, there's a lot of tools out there in the market, and a lot of them are based on BPMs. All right, BPM sounds very good, but in day-to-day business, sometimes it's not that good because it's very rigid. On one hand, and on the second hand, we thought about that getting implementation of those kind of tools requires a lot of time, requiring to set up the processes, and sometimes in some companies, people don't really know how they manage project, and they don't have so well-defined process. So it takes a lot of time before you can actually define all this and get to start using the tool. So we wanted to get out of this and get away from this. And when we talk about implementation project with Talaia, we talk about 2 months, 2.5 months max, in order for you to have the full deployment of the tool, full features, configurations, and even at some stage some personalization. All right, and you can start using the tool in our project, deployment project, like within 2 weeks, and start using it, putting information, etc., etc. Okay, so we wanted to make things as quick as possible and as easy as possible. All right, and customizable. All right, the idea is that we try to have the tool stick as much as we can to the customer processes and situation. It's a web-based tool, so that means that you just open it up with a web navigator. It doesn't mean that it's only based into the cloud. So we offer 3 modalities. You can have it into on-premise. You can have it into cloud. All right, we're using Amazon in order to host the tool if you are purchasing through a cloud modality, or you can have it in SaaS model. All right, just doing the traditional now per users. Okay, and it's on a monthly basis. Multi-language, we have it in English, we have it in Spanish, we have it in German, and we have it in French. All right, so you can just choose the interface, and it's multi-department. The idea there is that within a company, then Talaia can be used by different departments managing different type of projects. Okay, so when we talk about configurable, so we've got a huge bunch of attributes, things that are actually mainly drop-down fields, labels you can change, and you can adapt to whatever you want. And when it comes to organization, so as I said, you can actually have multi-department working on it, and we based it on performing organization. All right, so I understand you are very familiar with PMBOK, so that's no secret for you. So you can actually create as much PO as you like. Okay, so we just try to assess you guys when you first get the deployment to know, okay, how many POs should be creating based upon the company structures, etc., etc. We've got predefined roles, all right, into the tool. Okay, so that means that in order to get people on board into the tool, you just create users, and then you associate to them roles or set of roles. In each performing organization, a user can have different roles, all right? And with Talaia, the roles are already having the permission embedded, all right? So we don't need to define for each role what they can do, etc. We just choose the right set of roles that goes for each of the person in the different departments. We've got 2 major modules, which is investment and project modules, all right? Typically, investment is some kind of demand management, but not a demand management as we would know it, in the sense that one investment, so one demand, is one project. Okay, we're working in next year to get a real demand management module, so we can have different demands, they can get grouped together, and then they can be developed under one project, or one demand can be split into different projects in order to actually answer the demand of the different people. So at that stage, we've got investment and project, but it's a one-on-one actually interaction. So what does it mean? It means that within the investment module, we've got two major roles, which is the investment manager and the PMO. All right, both of them can actually raise new investments. Okay, and they would appear with an in progress status. Immediately, if you are looking from a project module point of view, so if there's a PM that is already associated, for example, then he'll be able to see this potential project, okay, which is still called an investment, in initiating status. Within the investment module, this is where the decision making takes place. All right, so this is where PMO or investment management can decide to set on hold an investment, reject it, or approve it. Okay, if this investment has been approved, automatically the status will change into the project module from initiating to planning. At that stage, the project manager needs to be associated to the project. It's actually optional in the first place in initiating, so it has to be associated, and then he's the one that starts taking the lead of the project. So it means that he'll finalize the planification if he hasn't started to do so in an initiating phase. And then when he decides, he's the one changing the status from planning to execution. He's executing his project, then he's the one setting the execution to the closed status. Automatically, when he does that, from an investment point of view, if people are just following the investment after it's been approved, then they'll see that this investment will move to closed. And then when the project manager archives the project, then as well, the investment status will move to close from archived. Okay?
Okay.
When it comes down to now the single management of a project, okay, we've divided this into different group of process, all right, which are grouped in tabs. Okay, according to the project status, then we have access to different group of process and different tabs that get opened or closed as we are going through the project. So in an initiation phase, all right, so project is pending for approval, then initiation tab is open, planning tab is open, and risk tab is open. Once the project is approved and the project manager has to produce a detailed project plan, then he is allowed as well to he's allowed to get his team, even though those guys, they are not able to register hours and expenses to it. And he can start managing procurement. So any subcontractation that he has to external providers, then he can start managing that. Then project goes to execution. So team member can charge expensive and time. All the features are enabled up to that the project gets to closures. Only the closure tab remains open, where closing information can be updated and can be changed. And up to the time that project gets onto archive, then from a project manager point of view, the information cannot be changed. It's only read-only, and only the PMO, all right, is able to actually change information or get back to a previous status if it's necessary for a project manager to change some information.
Let me ask a quick question here.
Yes, of course.
So during the planning phase, you're saying team members are not allowed to charge time and expenses?
Correct.
Why is that?
Here. In plan, you said. What do you say? Yeah. In the planning, why is that?
Yeah.
Okay, because we understand that the project hasn't started yet. Okay, so the project manager puts to execution the project when he moves from plan to execution. So that means that is kicking off the project. Okay, at that time he's only getting the approval for his team through the resource managers. All right, and get the project all set, and then it's when he's changing the status from plan to execution, then really is just like doing the kickoff of the project. Okay.
Okay. The only reason I asked that question because there's a lot involved in the planning phase, and how do I know how much time my users are spending in the planning phase?
Good question. At the moment, within Talaia, well, you could, let me think. You could have it as an activity, but it's true that you wouldn't be able to actually report hours just for the specific planning. At the moment, you don't have this possibility. What sometimes we do, it all depends what you want to have. Let me explain that. It's a matter of setting up the information. We've got some customers, they are very wary about pre-sales, for example, timing into a project where planning is involved and there's a lot of activity taking place, and sometimes the project is actually not accepted and is not putting into production. Okay, and I've got an interest to understand, okay, how much time do those guys spend on that kind of activity. What we usually do is actually having a specific project which you could name like pre-sales or planning or something like this, and where all the different people involved in planning are able to report hours. So at the end of the year, you're able to see how many hours have been involved in brackets non-productive, so to speak, activities.
Okay, so there is.
Yeah, there is a way. It's just a matter of how you modelize Talaia and how you structure the project. So one of the things we do is, like, when you want to report some kind of things, especially on pre-sales, because pre-sale is not only about planning, but pre-sale sometimes it's very, difficult to capture how much time we do spend on pre-sale before things are actually happening. Especially that at some stage, some of the project, they're actually not getting approved. All right, so that information is getting lost. So what we advise to the people is that, okay, you just create a project, okay, where actually people can report the number of hours, and you can actually as well split it by activity. It depends. It can be specific planning, it can be pre-sales, it can be any activity. So you can have this split within the project. So at the end of the year, okay, my people, they spend I don't know, 500 hours on planning projects. Others have spent 1,000 hours on pre-sales activities, etc., etc. So you have the ability by doing this to get the information and know, how much time and has been spent on those kind of activity.
Okay.
Okay. We'll talk about resource management and assignment. So you'll be able to plan resources. Basically, project managers look for resources. Here we've got a couple of ways, because resource management is complex, all right, and it sometimes gets very detailed and depends on how dynamic is resource assignment. Okay, so if people jumps from activities of projects to one day to another, or if it's like really long-term project and people have long-term activities and they actually don't go into other project activities, and etc., etc. So there's a couple of processes we have. We have whether, for example, the project manager requests a resource and automatically the resource is approved, or we have the project manager going through the resource manager, okay, requiring this person, and the resource manager gets the request and decides based upon resource capacity planning which person if he's approving, or which other person he may assign to this activity if the one that is required is not available or he considers that's not the right person. Okay, so you've got a process here that can be that is configurable in order for you to use that. You can create pool of resources, so by technology, by departments, whatsoever, and they are managed by one or more than one resource managers. Okay, and then you'll have obviously team members being able to declare hours, and you'll be able to get the resource capacity running of all the different resources. And then I'll come to one of the points you've just mentioned, all right, which is integration with other tools and what does. When we first started create Talaia, okay, we looked at other obviously tools into the market, and there's some well-known ones, all right, very big, very complex, and those guys, they probably touch most of those things into those tools. Okay. On our side, we decided to make it rather more simple. The idea was just stick to what is project management, okay, and integrate with other tools that do other kind of things. What are we going to talk? We're going to talk about Microsoft Project, right, in a scheduling point of view, purely scheduling tool. Okay, we're going to talk about document management system. So you were talking about SharePoint, for example. All right. We're talking about task management. All right. So Talaia goes at some stage a little bit to task management, but that's not the idea. Okay, we create a little bit of a Gantt feature into Talaia, but the idea is that if you're really going deep down to task, Agile, Scrum, etc., etc., okay, then the best thing is to work Talaia in combination with those task management tools. All right, I just put on the screen a couple of very well known. All right, like Jira, Redmine, Asana, whatsoever. Okay, and the idea is that integrate with those guys rather than duplicate these features that we will never do as good as they are. Okay, and that's the same for most of the other stuff. Okay, so depending how you want to do, then it's sometimes much better to use a specific product and integrate properly with Talaia in order to get the right solution.